Hello. Okay, here we go. That's much better. Now you can hear me. Let's skip through that. It's a great pleasure to be here in Taipei. We very much appreciate the partnership with Cafe Life and very grateful for the invitation from Joseph Wang to come and talk to you today. When Joseph invited me, the first thing I thought was, well, fantastic, because I love Taiwanese food, so I would love to go to Taiwan and go to Raohe, like last night, and have xiaolongbao, and also drink your oolong tea. I very much like tea, and oolong tea from Taiwan is, of course, the best in the world. Of course, he didn't tell me that I also had to present to like 1,000 people, so that was a surprise. I come from Edinburgh in Scotland, so the population of Edinburgh is very small. Usually we don't have events of this size, so this is a new experience for me. I want to talk a little bit about my team in Baillie Gifford, our investment philosophy, why we think that's important, and then I want to talk a little bit about our views on the future, and we'll talk about artificial intelligence, which I know is something that is very interesting for many of you at the moment. So, what is this that I have on the screen here? This is an academic study on stock market returns, global stock market returns, for the past 30 years. And the really interesting thing is, over that period, you could have, there's like 60,000 companies that you could invest in. Individual companies, 60,000 different investment opportunities over the past 30 years. And most of them destroy value. About 37,000 companies, 61% of 61,000 is 37,000. They lose money, which is quite terrifying, actually, if you think about it. And then there are some more companies that maybe make you a little bit of money. Maybe you make 2 times your money. Maybe you don't lose money, okay? That's a good thing. And then 1% of companies, it's only 800 companies out of 61,000, create all the money. Only 1% of companies. So we're talking about Apple, we're talking about NVIDIA, of course, Microsoft, Tesla. This is really quite extraordinary. And you could have maybe two reactions to this data. You could say, okay, well, you should own everything, because I don't want to miss that 1%, so I should own everything. Or you could have an investment philosophy which says, we're going to spend all our time trying to find that 1%. And that is what my fund in Baillie Gifford is trying to achieve. We're trying to find the 1%. And just one more thing on this. This is returns from the past 30 years. If you go back to 100 years, the number of companies that create all the value is 4%. So what does that tell us? That returns are actually becoming more extreme over time. So it's really important in investing not to miss companies like NVIDIA. So how does that look when you're actually doing that in an investment fund? This is the results from the fund that I co-manage. Long-Term Global Growth is the name of the company you see at the bottom there, LTGG. This is the past 20 years. The product has celebrated our 20th anniversary earlier this year. And 2 of those stocks there at the top, Hermes and Amazon, have been held for all of those 20 years. So when we say that we're long-term, we really mean that. So 2 things to say here. You can see at the bottom, there are many companies where we made a mistake and they lost money. Like I said, 60% of companies lose money. But the companies that do well, the companies in the 1%, outweigh that so many times. Amazon is 65 times return over 20 years. So that means that if I choose a wrong company and that company goes down 70%, it means Amazon compensates for that 100 times. So that's the power of asymmetry in the power of extremity. Many people are surprised to see Hermes on this list, but I'm sure that many ladies in the room will not be surprised. The power of luxury goods is exceptional for long-term investing. There is only one Hermes in the world. It's not possible to replicate it. Sure, you have Chanel and Gucci or Alexander McQueen or whatever, but there is only one Hermes, and it has 120 years of history. They can keep putting the price up every year, and people will still buy it. It's called like a Veblen good in economics. People will keep buying it. So that has, I think, a 40 times return over 20 years. Technological revolutions. There's a principle in physics, I don't know if we have any physicists in the room, called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which states that you can know where something is or where it's going, but not both things at the same time. And I think investment is kind of similar. If you look out long enough, you can see, think about where is the trend going, but it's difficult to say where are you in that journey. Think about, as an example, electric vehicle adoption. Right? Electric vehicle adoption is maybe 25% in China of new vehicle sales, 10% in the United States, maybe 10% in Europe, something like that. And at the moment, it's slowing because interest rates have gone up. Buying a car is expensive for many people. Many people use a lease, so that the finance price has gone up. And that has caused the adoption to slow. But over the very long term, the victory of electric vehicles is inevitable. We cannot keep burning fossil fuels and putting them into the atmosphere. And the product is better. It's cheaper to run. It's cleaner. The technology is better. And many in the future will have self-driving. We'll talk about that as well. So on my team, we're thinking about deep transitions in the economy, long-term trends. When Jensen Huang decided in 2014 that he was going to bet the future of NVIDIA on AI, they had only used GPUs to train one model. They were trying to identify images of cats. And in the previous year, in 2013, Google Mind did this first, and they used CPUs. And they used 16,000 CPUs to train a neural network to recognize cats. But then the following year, two researchers, and one of those researchers went on to be the founder of OpenAI, they used 2 GPUs to do the same thing. 16,000 CPUs is 2 GPUs. And Jensen famously asked the question, if we can teach it this, what else can we teach it? Very interesting. So over the long term, maybe the trend is clearer than over the shorter term. This slide is intended to show that long-term growth investing requires you having an open mind. Each decade has its own theme, perhaps. And the theme of this decade will not be the theme of the previous decade, is not the same as the previous decade. These are stocks that have been the largest companies in each decade. You can see very, very different companies. So we have to be open-minded. I'm going to talk a little bit more about artificial intelligence. Many of you, of course, are very familiar with the companies on the left, NVIDIA, ASML, TSMC, of course, here in Taiwan, that have benefited enormously from the boom in AI spending that's happening. But the question is, what can we use this technology for? What comes next? What other companies might benefit from the deployment of AI technology? And I just gave some examples here of companies in our portfolio. And I'll talk about Tesla and Moderna a little bit later. But thinking about Cloudflare, Cloudflare runs a a global network. It's effectively the backbone of the internet. And in the future, if we need to deploy AI models, how are people going to consume those models? Right? Because people will use more and more. And maybe you could do it on your mobile phone, but the power consumption would be very, very high to run an AI model on your phone. It would be quite difficult. Or you can use a data center somewhere, but then the delay, the latency would be quite long. Cloudflare is a third place where you can run AI inference on the network close to the consumer. So we're very interested about how they are positioned. The Trade Desk, nobody has ever heard of this company, but they have a huge share of the online advertising market. Basically, everything that's outside of Facebook and Google, the so-called walled gardens, is run on the Trade Desk. People are bidding for advertising. And just to give you an idea, the number of requests per day on the Trade Desk is 1 trillion, which is 10 times more than Google. And artificial intelligence is used in that business to think about when to serve the exact correct ad to the correct person at the right moment. So we're already starting to see impacts. Chip manufacturer, everybody talks about NVIDIA, and quite rightly, it's a fantastic company. It has a very dominant market share. But people forget that it's not only NVIDIA. AMD, another of the great Taiwanese CEOs, Lisa Su, when she took charge of AMD, their share in server CPUs was 4%. And fast forward to today, their share is more like 50%. They really did very well competing against Intel. And they also want to compete against NVIDIA. So cannot just be NVIDIA. Tesla is designing their own AI chips. At the moment, they have the equivalent of 40,000 GPUs. They want to increase that by 10 times, and half of that compute will be their own chips that they designed. So there are multiple companies working on AI chips. This comes back to Jensen Huang's comment, what else can you teach it? If computing performance is increasing, if it's doubling every year, then what might we be able to do in future? The pace of change is extremely, extremely rapid. What happens if, for example, you make so much progress that the AI agent is able to improve itself? Then you maybe get more than a doubling. Already, NVIDIA's leading chips are designed by artificial intelligence. So progress here is nonlinear and is accelerating. This is just a little bit about investing in NVIDIA. My team first invested in NVIDIA in July 2016. The reason I show this chart is when many people think about growth investing, the first thing that comes into your mind is volatility. Right? It's going to go up, it's going to go down. How do I deal with that? And the same is true of NVIDIA. Over this 8-year period here, there have been 2 occasions when the share price fell by more than 50%. The first time in 2018 when the server market slowed down, and the second time when the cryptocurrency market collapsed. So it's easy to say you want to be a long-term investor, but it's actually a difficult thing to do, to hold on to your stocks when everybody else is panicking. The result is 50 times our investment here. Okay, applications of AI. I think these are the 2 areas that I'm most excited about today to talk to you about. Everybody's talking about NVIDIA, everyone's talking about OpenAI and ChatGPT, but what about practical applications in the real world? What is Moderna's cancer vaccine? The state of cancer treatment today, sadly, is that most people do not respond to treatment. You discover you have cancer. Maybe if you're lucky, you have surgery. And then after the surgery, you have chemotherapy or you have checkpoint inhibitors to try and prevent the cancer from spreading further. What Moderna has created is a way of using the body's own immune system through AI to tackle cancer for itself. And I'll explain briefly how that works. You go for your surgery for cancer, in this case for melanoma. A sample is taken from that surgery and sequenced. The sequence is fed to Moderna's neural net, Moderna's AI engine, and it produces the code for a vaccine against that cancer that is specific to the patient, specific to you. So every patient is unique. This is something that was not possible before progress in AI and genetic sequencing. So you might say, okay, well, that sounds very nice, Michael. You know, when do we have this? When is this going to happen? What's the impact? The impact is that when they've done the trials for this vaccine, the probability of dying is 50% lower. So patients who have this vaccine in Moderna's trial, their probability of dying is halved, and the probability of the cancer spreading is down by 60%. This is really remarkable, and this will be on the market next year, not just in the US, but also around the world. And I think that this will be, if they can commercialize this, this will be a revolution in cancer care. It will go from being a death sentence to just something we hope that you can manage. And that's one impact that AI can have in future. Full self-driving. Famously, every year, Elon Musk says that self-driving is next year, we promise. Next year, it will drive you to your home. And for many years, they've pursued this vision, but they haven't yet succeeded. The system is good, but it's not perfect, right? Maybe you have some FSD users in the room. Last year, they made a very important change, which is made possible because of progress in AI. Before, the car was just taking images from the cameras around the car, individual images. And it would look at, let's say you look at a sign on the road and say, is that a stop sign or is it not a stop sign? Is that a person? Is that not a person? And it's just individual image frames. But last year, because they now have more computing power, they got rid of all of that and they just replaced it with video. So the car takes in video, the video goes into Tesla's neural net, and the neural net tells the car what to do. You don't have any human coding. There's no programmer sat there saying, you should do this, you should do that, in this scenario, do this, do that. There's none of that. It's just video data. And this is how much video data they're gathering. Just to give you some context on this chart, the first 1 billion miles on FSD there took them basically 4 years. And the next 1 billion miles of data will happen in 4 months. So this is how quickly Tesla's gathering data. And in August this year, they're going to announce their robo-taxi service. So we'll see about that. This is some very interesting aspects, I think, how AI will actually change our lives. You know, ChatGPT, this makes life more fun and more efficient. You can create images, you can get it to help you with work. This is very good, but I think the impact on the real world over the next 5 to 10 years will be very extreme and profound. So that's what we're thinking about at Baillie Gifford. I'm going to pause there because I'm conscious there's a lot of talking that you're listening to today, but I hope that's given you some insight into how we think as an investment manager. We're long-term, we're thinking about disruptive technology. We think that AI is now obvious, but it's not yet obvious what will happen in future. And this is a very nice photo of Edinburgh. We hope that you'll be able to visit someday. We don't have xiaolongbao, but we do have whiskey. So please consider visiting us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Michael.